Hi there, welcome to ChessBase Workshop. My name is Steve Lopez. Thank you for clicking on that link and joining us for this presentation. In the last three ChessBase workshops, we've been talking about opening keys, and what they are is opening indexes that allow you to find opening just like using the index in the back of a book. We've looked at different opening indexes that ChessBase can generate. In fact, tell you what we'll do, we'll just show you rather than talk about it. Brand new database I've just created for the purpose of this demonstration. When you double click on it, get your game list. There's only 2 games in it. We'll explain more about that later. When you click the openings tab, you get this. What we have here is 4 selections. One of them is select key. As we've seen, it allows you to bring a key in from another database if you wish. You can install a big key, which is a large key of all the different openings. You can install a small key, which is more selective. It's more general, generally classifies openings by opening system or named variations rather than specific sub-variations. There's a 4th button here, though, we haven't looked at yet, really. It's called Install Empty Key. Why would you want to install a key that's got nothing in it, you may ask? Well, the obvious answer is because you want to make your own opening key. And you can do it. You can build your own opening keys in ChessBase. It's a grind. It's not a grind because of the software or because of the steps or any of that. It's actually pretty easy to do, but to do it well requires organization. You have to be organized to do this properly. That's the trick. And that is why this is not for the faint of heart. It's like a bad war movie. If anybody wants to back out of this mission, this suicide mission we're about to go on, now is the time, and no one will think less of you for backing out now. That's what this is. If you have no interest in building an opening key of your own, it's a lot of work, but if you have no interest in doing it, you can bail out of this video now and go do something else on the inner rant, and no one will think the less of you for it. Okay? But it is a lot of work. It's a passel of work to do this. You have to be very well organized to do it. And some opening keys you never really do quite finish. You go in and put in tons of variations, and then maybe some weeks go by and you find some more variations, and you put those in. And you're always adding, deleting, tweaking. There are some opening keys, honestly, that you just never, ever really get done with. That could very well happen. It could be if it's an opening you play a lot of, you may discover more and more things about that opening, and you may always be going back and tweaking and adding and subtracting, and it may always be a work in progress. That's actually kind of cool. You can learn a lot about the openings by building your own opening key, but you do need to be pretty well organized to do it. Now, as with all things chess-based, there's always multiple ways to skin a cat. There's a whole bunch of different ways to organize your work for creating an opening key. It does take some outside work to do. One of the things you can do is if you have a database on a particular opening. Now, when I say particular opening, I mean, in this case, the Roy Lopez Exchange. That's what we're going to be using as an example for this and the next couple of workshops. That's the opening I'm going to be working with. And there's a reason why I'm doing it. It's because it's a very well-defined, very well-organized opening. There aren't tons of transpositions. There's not a lot of surprises there. That's why I chose it. Also, I do play it occasionally, so it was something I'm interested in anyhow. But one thing you can do, if you have a database, for example, as I do, of nothing but Roy Lopez Exchange games, you can create an opening tree of all the games in that database and use that as your template for creating an opening key. However, instead of showing you how to do that, we'll save that for another time. We'll come back to that. What I chose to do, I'm lazy, basically, and I prefer to stand on the shoulders of giants. So what I did was I went to my bookshelf and pulled out an opening manual, of which there are numerous, and I have piles of them, you know, MCO, ECO, the old Batsford chess openings from back in the day. I remember back in the early 90s, that was the most trusted source among all the guys I played with, was we went to Batsford for our opening variations and evaluations. And the one I picked this time, though, I picked Nunn's Chess Openings, which has been kicking around for a decade or so, and I still refer to it quite frequently. So I have a battered copy of Nunn's Chess Openings that I'm going to use as my template for my Roy Lopez Exchange variations. And the reason why I'm doing this, again, is because the work is already there. It's already organized. It's already in a tree form. It's a kind of a horizontal tree, sort of a spreadsheet looking thing, but it's a tree, and it's all there, and it's all the basics have already been done. So that's what we're going to start with. But the first step to creating an opening key is to install an empty key. we have the button right here, install empty key. So let's click on that and see what happens. Bing! I mean, instantly you have an empty key. No keys in this list. That would define empty, I believe. The reason why it only takes a second is the only thing that button does is create 2 files and add them to your database. 2 computer files that are going to be your opening keys. Okay, very simple. Now, the way you create an opening key is a couple different ways. One is, go back to the Games tab so this button up here will work. You can open up a board window and bang in some moves. And I could use this, but what I did actually was I cheated. I went in earlier and actually created a couple games I'm going to use as my first couple of templates. Okay, so we'll click on the first one, which is variation that is a Roy Lopez exchange variation. There's basically 2 forks of the Roy exchange. One is, well, let's get to the Roy exchange first. The first position that you want to put into any opening key, your top level position. Notice, by the way, I say position, not variation. I don't care about variations when I'm creating an opening tree. It has nothing to do, well, it does kind of, but transpositions will ruin your life when you're creating an opening key. I'll show you. Let me show you how you can easily back into an opening, and I've used this as an example 1,000 times. But used to play chess with a guy that was madly in love with bird's opening. If he had white pieces, you always got this out of him: F4, game after game after game. So I decided to go and throw a little monkey wrench into work, so I decided to go learn the From Gambit. So I would play this. And what do you think he does? He doesn't do this, which is what I expected. No, he does this instead. And look what we just did. We just backed into a King's Gambit. Instead of playing E4, E5, F4, it's just a transposition of moves. F4, E5, and then E4, and you back into a King's Gambit, and neither one of us knows what we're doing. So, that's why we're not concerned with move orders when we're creating opening trees, or opening keys rather, so much as we are concerned with positions. I'll show you what I'm talking about here. Let's get back to our game. I'll bang through the moves using the keyboard, and we will get to the defining position of the Roy Lopez, which is here. Then, of course, black plays A6 for the Morphe defense, and then white has a whole plethora, a cornucopia of moves at this point, but white can do this and inaugurate the Roy Lopez exchange variation. That's one of the main reasons to play the Roy exchange, by the way, is instant clarification. Once you cop off that night with your bishop and you're playing white, it can't be anything but a Roy Lopez exchange, whereas if you go somewhere else with the bishop after that pawn comes out, there's a whole bunch of different ways that opening can go at that point. So this is instant clarification. This is forcing black into some place you want to be, which is by playing that. That is the defining position. This position is what defines the Roy Lopez exchange. That's what we want as our top level position in our opening key. So now that we have this position on a board, on a board in an open game window, we're going to go back. We're going to go to our opening tab. And first, before we get to all the dramatic stuff, I'm going to take a sip of coffee. Excuse me a moment. Keeping you in suspense. Here's how you do it. A couple different ways. Again, in ChessBase, more than one way to skin a cat. The way I do it is I right-click. We get a menu that pops open. We go to the Edit command, and we get a sub-menu that opens up. And look what we have here, a command that says Insert New Key. There's also a keyboard shortcut. Insert. The insert button on your keyboard will do the same thing. On this particular computer, on this laptop, those little tiny chiclet keys up there in the corner, of which insert is one, I don't trust these big stupid fingers to hit the correct key properly, so I'm going to go ahead and use the mouse to do this. But you can use the insert key on your keyboard. Go ahead and click that command, and the first thing that you see, excuse me, anytime you create a key, is this, the position, the defining position of that key. Excuse me, hay fever is kicking my butt here. Why is black at the bottom? Well, black is at the bottom because it's black's turn to move. That's one thing you'll always see in this display. When you see a classification position, you will always see the moving side will be displayed at the bottom. So don't let that throw you, because when you first look at this, you think, oh, that's not the same as this, but it absolutely dead certain, absolutely totally is. It's just with the board flipped. So you have this, that is your classification position, that is the correct position. So we click OK, and we get this. And what we see here is a move order. E4, E5, knight F3, knight C6, blah, 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 right up to where the bishop takes on C6 on move 4. And if we consider that to be correct, that is the variation that we want. We go way over here to this blue OK button, we click on it, and now we have our top level key. However, there's a cooler thing you can do here. That is the defining position of the Roy Lopez exchange. I know these moves. Otherwise, why would I be creating an opening key on an opening if I didn't know the first 4 moves that get us to that defining position, that tabia of this opening? So I can do something a little cool with this. And what I'll do is this. I can either click on it to highlight it and either hit F2 on the keyboard, again, one of those little annoying chiclet keys on this laptop, or I can right-click and I can go to Edit, and I can go down here to the Edit command, which you'll see F2 is our shortcut for it. Let me click Edit, and we get our same display again that we saw a moment ago, where I can go in there. You see there's a flashing cursor next to the 1. What that indicates is we can type other stuff in here if we feel like it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight that whole string of moves because I know them by heart. I don't need to see those. What I will type instead is Roy Lopez exchange variation. And after putting my glasses back on for a moment, making sure that I typed it correctly, I did. I will click the OK button, and there we are. And that is the top level key of our opening key. If I was to sort, if I had a database of thousands of games of the Roy Lopez exchange, and if I was to classify the database at this point by going to Tools and Classification and Whole Database, what you'd wind up with is however many thousand games listed over here instead of a 0. We only have 1 key in this opening key at this point, only 1 key position. Now, let's say you make a mistake. You want to get rid of an opening key that you've messed up. Well, you can do that as well. And the way you do that is either highlighting a key and hitting the delete key on the keyboard, or you can right click, go to Edit, and down here to delete, and that will delete the key. You get a couple of confirmation. I'm not going to do it here because I don't want to delete this. I'm happy with this, so I don't want to go back and redo it. So I'm going to leave this alone. But if I was to click delete right here, you would get a couple of confirmation pop-ups that would come up. First one is, are you sure you want to delete? You click yes. Then it says, do you want to reclassify the games in the database? You can click yes or no at that point and go on with it. Now, what this is, I'm going to try to paint a little word picture for you here. When you're done with this, and we're done for the week, by the way, you can kick back for a minute because we're not going to add any more keys until the next time around at ChessBase Workshop. But what this does is what you're creating is a file cabinet, basically full of little folders. Each folder has a picture of a chessboard on it. This folder that says Roy Lopez Exchange Variation has a picture on it, and that file folder has this picture, a picture of this chessboard. As ChessBase goes through all the games in a database, any games that it finds that has this position will go into that file folder with that same picture on the front. That's a way to think of it, to kind of organize this in your mind, to understand what opening keys are. A database is like a big file cabinet, and an opening key is like you open up a drawer, and a particular key is a file folder with this picture of this variation on the front of that folder. That's the Roy Lopez Exchange. Any game that has this position will get into that folder. However, as I said, you may have thousands of games of the Roy Lopez Exchange. Well, guess what? You can put subfolders into that folder, just like you can in a file cabinet. You see those big folders with the little hooks on the ends that you hang in there, and each one of those folders can have additional folders within it, and each of those folders may have additional folders, and some of those folders may have a bunch of papers with a paper clip clipping them together. That's just ways of grouping information. That's what we're using with keys. We're grouping information, just like in a file folder, file cabinet and file folder. So what we're going to show you in the next ChessBase workshop is how to get additional folders inside of this one, how to get additional keys in as sub keys. One more thing I want to point out, by the way, and that's this. Notice that there was actually one more move in this game, which was this, which is not the way you play the Roy Exchange, by the way. Some people do, though, so it's useful to have a key with this. But notice that this game it was a variation that ended with b takes c6. But notice that when I created a key, it didn't go to this position. It went to the position I had highlighted. That is a major, 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 major thing to remember when you are creating opening keys. When you're in a board window and you switch from the board window to the opening key window and you want to add a key, insert new key, it will always be whatever move is highlighted, whatever position is highlighted in a game, not the final position of the game, not the end position, whatever position is currently highlighted. Remember that. That is majorly important. Keep that in the back of your mind. Play around with this a little bit. Very simple. Just try to go back, watch the video again, try to recreate what we've done here. That's your basics of creating an opening key. Get that down. We'll come back next week. We'll show you how to start putting sub keys in as keys within keys, file folders within file folders. That's what we're going to look at in next week's ChessBase workshop. Until then, please have fun.